Good evening and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you live, broadcasting from the studios of the American Guns and Glory Network here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related political issues, and self-defense issues. Fired Up with Bob Irwin is now on our website, which is running. And you can go to, theoretically, any computer. It worked on mine. And there is a brand new website up there, and information how to contact me and so forth and so on is on there. We are on our own network now, our own website, with a new show every Thursday around 5 p.m. We're simultaneously on YouTube and on the Nevada Talk Radio Network. That's 8 radio stations throughout Nevada. They rebroadcast the show on Saturdays at noon throughout the state of Nevada. You can find them on their website and just search Nevada Talk Radio Network and you will find all the stations that they do it. They all run it at noon on Saturday. Email may be sent to bob@firedupmail.com. Or you can leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, I'll get back to you by email, text, or telephone. Questions directed to my guests can be forwarded to me with their name attached to it at the end, and I will forward it to the people that you are trying to get in touch with. There are several hundred defensive firearms uses every day, every week in the United States. They're rarely covered by the mainstream media. Obviously, we've had some big coverage of some of them lately, but they only cover negative stuff. So we always try to present a few anyway, of the good uses of firearms, which outnumber the bad uses about 10 to 1 as near as we can tell. So they're always there for our listeners' education. The idea is that you can place yourself in the position of the person involved in the story and see what he did, right or wrong, or what he could have done better. The idea is to put yourself in his position and see what you could have done differently that maybe would have made the outcome a little bit better. We are trying to be educational. This is a nationwide show, so when we do a particular case, when I have an attorney comment strictly on a case, you have to remember that what matters is the law and the jurisdiction where the shooting takes place. Obviously, what's a good shooting in Nevada is not a good shooting in New York City. What's a good shooting in Wyoming isn't a good shooting in Florida necessarily, et cetera, et cetera. If you're involved in a case already, we're not trying to give you advice about that case. However, we can, if you wish, refer you to an attorney in your area that does specialize in these types of criminal defense cases or civil lawsuit defense cases. Our intent here is to keep you out of jail, keep you safe, and prevent you from losing civil lawsuits when they come up. My guest today is Nevada and California attorney Donald Green. Don, if you would, a little bit of your background for anybody who hasn't seen you on the show.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Again, it's always an honor and a pleasure to be at your show or on your show. My name is Don Green. I'm a lawyer both in California and Nevada for the past 35 years. The substantial emphasis of our practice has to do with gun-related issues, firearm legislation, firearm litigation, background checks, assisting people in finding out why there's problems with background checks, criminal cases, and business law. And of course, we do consultations for federal firearms dealers and gun rights groups concerning pending legislation or litigation such as that pending in the Ninth Circuit right now.
Yeah, and as anybody who's not living under a rock knows, we have some interesting things going on in D.C. at the moment. So what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to run one of our regular stories about a shooting so we can look at that. It took place in California, so I picked one out for Don. And after that, we're going to go into a bit of a commentary as to what's going on with the pending legislation in Congress, in the state of Nevada, perhaps in California. There's a lot of stuff going on that is going to affect gun owners very dramatically. Anyway, this first story comes from CBS News. It's TV8 in Los Angeles, California. This is from the 12th of this month. an El Cajon homeowner shot at a potential car burglar who was breaking into his parked vehicle in the 1000 block of Mona Place just after 1 a.m. El Cajon Police Lieutenant Walt Miller told the media, in this area of El Cajon is generally a very quiet neighborhood. In my 30-year career, he said, I think I've been on Mona Street twice. The homeowner said he woke up to his dogs barking. He looked out his window and saw an individual standing by his truck. Lieutenant Miller said, concerned that it was being broken into, the resident went to his bedroom, retrieved a firearm, and went outside to confront whoever it was. On his way out, the homeowner told investigators he heard glass breaking. A confrontation then took place between the two men, apparently inside the house. There were no details given of that other than the confrontation taking place. The homeowner fired at least 3 shots from a handgun, and at least one of those hit the suspect. The suspect then got back into his own vehicle, which was parked out on the street, and tried to drive away. He hit several parked cars before crashing in front of a nearby home. Paramedics later pronounced the man dead from a gunshot wound at the scene. The Lieutenant Miller said the homeowner was cooperative with us and we are continuing our investigation. At the time, as of Sunday night, the homeowner was not under arrest or facing charges in the shooting of what the police called a would-be burglar. The officer went on to say, we would always encourage them to call the police department first, but nothing prohibits them from doing that. This is the United States. There are a lot of homeowners that own firearms, so it's always a possibility that a suspect may be breaking into our vehicle. The victim may be armed. Burglars should take that into account, that a firearm may be in the hands of his victim. The last portion, as usual, police encourage you to wait for them if there's a crime going on or something in process and so forth. You should wait for them to respond. In this case, that sounds like really difficult advice. Obviously, unless the policeman is sitting in your driveway when you make the call, even then he's not getting notified by his dispatch for at least a minute or a minute and a half. So having to use your firearm is what really happens because we all know about the police response time. Here we're averaging 7 or 8 minutes. In rural areas, it's even longer. Nobody's doing much better than 4 or 5 minutes, even in heavily policed areas. However, this appears to be a property crime case where deadly force was used. This is the way God made lawyers, Don. What you think?
Bob, you and I have had a similar scenario on your television and radio show many times, and we've discussed this point probably hundreds of times in the 30-plus years I've known you. It is my estimation that in this case, the homeowner is going to jail. Why? You lose your castle doctrine privilege and defense when you go outside and you become the aggressor with the firearm. There's nothing in this case which shows that the homeowner himself was subject to great bodily harm or immediate death or fear of death at that moment.
Right.
You pointed out just a moment ago that this was someone who's protecting property in a residential area. The second point, you can't take a gun to a gunfight. Now, if there would have been some armed aggression by the perpetrator, like coming up to the sidewalk, or coming up the sidewalk, and the homeowner opens the door and the perpetrator starts to fire his weapon, that's a different story.
Right.
Third, the well-founded fear or the reasonable fear of great bodily injury or death dissipated when you go back into the house and retrieve a firearm, then go back outside, which is what was apparently done according to the limited reports we have here. So, Mr. Green, are you telling me that under no circumstances can I go back into my home and retrieve a firearm? There's no law that says you can't retrieve the firearm. The issue then becomes the use of that firearm as to inflict great bodily harm or even death. Even in Nevada, you're going to go to jail. In California, you're going to go to jail. In California, because the perpetrator has died, the homeowner is facing the potential for a second-degree murder or perhaps even a manslaughter. A manslaughter is the killing of a human being while performing a lawful act in a negligent manner. Now, this wasn't an accidental shooting. This was a deliberate shooting at someone who's breaking into a car, and we all know that you don't use deadly force to stop a property crime. Yeah. And therefore, the result, the homeowner's going to jail.
Yeah, you have to feel really sorry for this guy. I'm sure he's not trying to do anything wrong, but in reality, you know, when we're reading through this, and in the first couple of sentences, we say, so the guy went into the house to get his gun, and then he came out to confront this would-be car burglar. Right there, it's over.
Yes.
You know, and unless the would-be car burglar then fired at him, as you said, or presented some clear deadly threat, we've all seen cases like this, and you really are, all of us involved in law enforcement and in gun issues, really want to do something for the guy.
Yes.
And the law is the law, and we are a nation of laws. It's not going to this is not going to come out good for the homeowner. I was reading through this, and I have to just go back to my police academy training years ago. The sentence I kind of mulled over, and then I skipped it the way it's written. It said, the resident confronted the suspect in a confrontation between the two of them.
Avoid the conflict.
That's not really a good sentence.
No, it isn't. Avoid the conflict was the number one rule in self-defense or the use of a firearm. If it's possible, avoid the conflict.
Yeah. Be the victim. If you can run, run. I go back to this on these same things every time. Nobody wins gunfights. And this, you can survive them, but this guy is very likely going to go to jail. He's very likely in a lawsuit to lose his house. The bad guy didn't shoot at him. The bad guy's unarmed. Here comes a civil lawsuit from the guys, you know this. Well, he was turning his life around. He was about to get a job. He was going back to college. All this stuff they throw at you in court and in front of a jury, and there you are. You're responsible. Anyway.
And Bob,
don't do that.
Oh, sorry.
Just, if your life's not in danger,
right,
don't shoot. You can point your gun. You can get sued over that too, but the lawsuits for having a gun pointed at somebody wrongly are way less than the jail time you're going to have for killing somebody wrongfully. It's just, if you've done something stupid and you realize it, stop in the middle, go back in the house, call 911, and hide in your refrigerator. It's over. Right? You can always stop. Even the 3 shots are going to become a problem in this case, I'm sure.
Yes. The average concealed weapon shooting in the United States, as you pointed out, for over 3 decades, 3 feet, 3 shots, 3 seconds, average. And that puts a point for why your listeners should pay attention to these shows and pay attention to what's going on in your videos from all your guests who come from various backgrounds and training. Training. Need to go for that training and additional training. You cannot rely on your CCW training when you got your license when you're going to be in a court situation. You need not only just for legal aspects, you need it for personal training to look through these, to work through these scenarios in actual, probably even live fire exercises.
Yeah. Training really never stops. I mean, in police work, we're required to qualify or train with the firearms 4 times a year or 2 times a year, depending on the department, and go through scenario training and go through this and go through legal training, and this is the new rule. and you have meetings, you know, every time before you got on shift, and if there's some law change, it goes, look out, we got, you know, this going on, we're being sued for this happening, try and avoid that, et cetera. You got to keep up. And having been trained in boot camp 10 years ago, the rules are different when you're in the military and then when you're civilian. Anyway, I want to get away from that. We're going to break for a very short commercial here, and we'll be right back and start talking about these new gun laws. Don't go away. Do you have a firearms trust or need one to pass your guns along? The Justice Department, BATF, has changed the rules in the recent past. If you have a firearm trust, particularly a Class 3 firearm trust, it needs updating. My longtime friend, Attorney Jerry Creed, is an expert in these trusts. Call Jerry at 702-806-7777 at his Summerlin office for a free appointment and evaluation of your situation. That's Jerry Creed, 702-806-7777. Don't end up leaving your firearms to the government because you have an invalid or out-of-date trust. Hi. And we are back. All of the hoopla in the press lately is about this gigantic bill that is in Congress now, that is a $1.6 trillion bill that covers Homeland Security and covers guns and covers schools and covers infrastructure and all this plethora of things. There's something in a bill that large for everyone in Congress to disagree with. But it appears that President Trump has decided to agree in that bill to some gun restrictions, some form of universal background checks, something that we have drilled against, I couldn't tell you how many times on this show, that the bad guys don't do background checks anyway, but what the heck. As of this recording, we don't have a lot of details. First I'll tell you, as soon as we have this really put together where we know exactly what the bill says, we will pop another show right then, in the middle of the week or whenever, so we can get it up on the air for our listeners, to find out what the compromise is. What's being stated on the media, that Don and I were discussing it when he came in the studio 10 minutes ago, the FBI has refused to do background checks in Nevada, and part of this bill asks the president to order the FBI or BATF or somebody to do background checks, but it's not being ordered. What apparently is happening is the bill proposes, and we don't have the wording, that the states will be given assistance financially in bringing their own background check systems, if they have one, up to snuff, so they're reporting crazy people and so forth and so on into the system. I can't really argue rationally that somebody who's been adjudicated nuts and not relieved of that duty should be able to buy a firearm. If one thing all these mass shootings have in common, it's the fact the guy's crazy. He's been, under care and nobody noticed. I mean, this last one in Florida, we don't want to go into because of all of the stuff. But if Trump signs the bill, then how does it work? Just knowing the little bit we know under states' rights and the 10th Amendment and so forth, it's like the bill to me, and I'm going to let Don run with it, it's like the bill to me that ordered the 218 carry permit, the Law Enforcement Safety Act, where the Congress decided that off-duty or retired officers could carry their firearm anywhere in the United States, and all of us retired cops got these little cards that say, you know, here we are, and da 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 da, and it looks really nice, but not everybody obeys it. Try doing that in the city of Chicago or the city of
Right.
New York. You're going to go to jail, officers. So obviously there's going to be non-compliance with states on this from both sides. Anyway, I'm going to shut up. Tell me what we know.
Here's what we know. According to, again, what little information is being brought out, and this massive bill, which has what's known as a lot of pork, P-O-R-K. That's a term which was added to our legislation in federal Congress back in the 1860s when they were called them pork bills. They'd add stuff on just for the hell of it and do it. Okay, here's what we know. The background checks which are proposed are really just extensions of what are already done right now under the Code of Federal Regulations and under 18 United States Code Section 922. Right now they're beefing up on mental incompetence. All of the people who would otherwise be disqualified under 18 United States Code Section 922G. And all you have to do is go online. You don't have to look at the statute, but go online and take a look at the January 2017 version of Form 4473 put out by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And in paragraph 11 on page 1, you're going to see about 10 line items. You're under indictment or information, you're a drug addict, you've got felony convictions, you're a mental incompetent, battery, domestic violence, illegal alien, dishonorably discharged from the United States military, you've renounced your citizenship, and then there's the ones on mental incompetence. What this bill proposes to do is beef those up and have as many resources, whether it's mental health resources, whether it's law enforcement resources, put this information into an accessible national database so that you can at least prevent or try to prevent problems such as what went down in Bishop, Texas, where the service member had been court-martialed under a special court-martial under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, corporal punishment on a spouse, which is like battery, domestic violence. But because of the military's special rules, such as a general court-martial and a special court-martial, it wasn't reported by the United States Air Force to the feds so that this would show up when the man went and purchased, at that time, legally purchased firearms. So the average American, your average gun buyer, doesn't really have to worry about what's going to be in the new bill, from what we can gather.
Correct.
Even though there are there's proposals to have states take on a more active role, even the FBI's December 2016 letter to the state of Nevada stated that we, the FBI, cannot do your background checks not because we don't want to, but because by federal regulation we are not authorized to provide the information to private federal firearms licensees. We can only provide this sensitive government information to appropriate law enforcement officers as is provided by your system in Nevada. Therefore, it's not a matter of the FBI refusing to do the background checks, and we'll get to the point in just a moment. And it's not because Attorney General Laxalt didn't want to enforce it. You cannot enforce a law which is a nullity, and that's exactly what the FBI said. So what this will do, that this bill seeks to do, is have the FBI, have the states provide more information, because the FBI pointed out that the states are in a better position to assess and evaluate and to code in the criminal convictions from the most serious convictions to the, well, seemingly insignificant situations such as a drug case. If you've got a pending drug case, you're not going to get a firearm because you are an abuser of drugs. If it's a misdemeanor under the Federal Code of Federal Regulations, you'll have to wait 1 year after everything is done in that misdemeanor drug case in order to try to get a firearm, because it's going to come up that you are still a prohibited person even though you're not a felon and you're not a fugitive. So in that respect, well, how does Congress do this? They do this with two provisions of the Constitution. First, all firearms in the United States, unless you have manufactured the steel, you dug the steel, the iron ore, smelted the steel in your backyard, grew the trees for the grips, every firearm or its parts travels in interstate commerce. And because a firearm or its parts or components travel in interstate commerce, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms has jurisdiction, as does the FBI. So Congress has the power to enact this legislation based on the interstate, to regulate interstate commerce. Additionally, Congress has the right to tax. Right now, there are several tax bills proposed as far as guns are concerned. So is the new background check law, if it costs more money, is it a tax? Probably. A tax by any other name is still a tax. But Congress has the right to do that and the power to do that. And how do we know that? We have to go back about 6 or 7 years to the summer when Justice Roberts wrote the decision on the Obama Health and Affordable Health Care Act. How was that act upheld? It wasn't upheld because everybody needs insurance. No. It was upheld because Congress has the power to tax, and if Congress has the power to tax, the law is constitutional, and that was written by Chief Justice John Roberts, who was a Republican appointee for life and good behavior. He was appointed by President Bush. So, does Congress have the right the power to do that? Yes. Does Congress have the power to tax? Answer, yes. So, we also have in Congress right now House Resolution 5103. It was submitted in the House of Representatives on February 28, 2018. This bill seeks to amend the Internal Revenue Service Code as follows. As to all firearm sales, an excise tax of 20%. As to all ammunition sales, an excise tax of 50%. Let me repeat that. Guns, 20%, ammo, 50%. Oh, they can't do it. Congress can do it. Congress has all kinds of excise taxes. Go to Walmart. Well, Sears is not open, maybe not open anymore. Go to Pep Boys. Go to Goodyear. And when you buy a new set of tires and you see that set of steel-belted radios, the tire is $79.99 each, wait till you get your bill. And when you look at the bill, you'll see like the disposal fees, and you'll see sales tax, and then you'll see federal excise tax. Tires have been taxed by the feds for decades. So if the feds can put an excise tax on tires, they can tax firearms. Now that is,
I got to interject here. I follow all this stuff, Don. And just before the show, he brought up this ammunition and firearm sales tax that is in Congress. I'd never heard of it. Mm-hmm. And it's there waiting to be voted on?
Yes, it's in the House right now. And I've heard nothing. I've heard nothing about it. I heard about it from a fellow lawyer who does legislative and lobbyist work in Washington, D.C., when he actually sent me the bill itself, which I'll put it on, I'll send it to you, and you can put it on your link or whatever you want to do.
Hopefully that will not pass.
Hopefully.
But as you say, there's lots of stuff pending that you couldn't possibly keep up with all this crap that's going on right now. With this budget bill, there is so much stuff packed into it. Mm-hmm. This is very reminiscent of the Obama bill.
Yes.
You know, you got to pass it before you're allowed to read it, and they can't read it. There's no time.
There's no time.
It doesn't appear from what I know and what Don knows, that that bill is going to really harm anybody who owns guns. It has nothing in it about picking up existing guns and so forth and so on. It returns the right to the states. So if you want to own your AR-15 and California decides to steal it, you can move to Wyoming. You know, it's entirely possible to do. The danger to me is the federal bills, the federal laws, because then you're stuck. This is turn in your guns time. Anyway, we're going to have to break it off there until we have a bit more information. As I say, our website is now up and running. You can watch these shows now at firedupwithboberwin.com. And as it was on the American Guns and Glory Network or on YouTube at the moment. YouTube's getting a little iffy with some of this. We don't want anything on YouTube to do with guns, but I thank you for watching. Please share these broadcasts with your friends. When you sign up or you look at one, there'll always be a tab on there for you to subscribe to it. And as I say, when we get more information on this bill, and we'll see what happens tomorrow, this is Thursday, they're going to vote on it tomorrow if there's time. It probably is going to get moved back a week from what I can tell so far without the government shutting down, but we don't know. They're out to get us. Vote. Last word is vote. Don, thank you.
Thank you as always.
We'll be back next week, and sooner if we had to put a show on, you'll be notified on our email sites and so forth when we know something more that we don't know now. Thanks for listening.